So my project today is putting a new starter in my 2016 Ford Explorer. And it's going to be a two-prong approach on doing the starter, because I'm putting in a new button on the dash. Because as many times as you push that button to make the starter turn the engine over, one of these is causing the problem. So the easiest thing to do is buy a new starter, and it was $26 or $27 for a new button. So I'm going to change both. So first thing, use a 10mm and disconnect your power. Okay, got the power disconnected. I'm using 8mm. And I'm going to disconnect this hose clamp. And after you do that, there's two clips over here. Release your air cleaner. Disconnect it. Once that's out of the way, you can see the starter right here. Now I'm going to move the shifter linkage out of the way to give me the maximum room to get that up and out of here. You want to do is just lightly stick a screwdriver under that and just lift it a little bit, and then you're going to push this off to the side. I'm explaining it because you won't be able to see me do it. Okay. So you just prying up a little bit to get that little tab to clear, to slide that off. So now that you got that done, you can lift this part of the cable up to move it out of the way. Now I've got myself a long screwdriver, and what I want to do is, there's a little tab right here. I'm trying to block the view. There's a little tab on each side. If you pull up on it a little bit, you can see it. Alright, you see the tab on each side. You just want to push them back just enough to get that little tit out of the way. So now we have more room in there to pull the starter up. So I got a flashlight, and right here I'm pointing to with the screwdriver is the one stud, that the nut that holds the starter on the one side, and then the other side is hidden under this wire loom. The wire loom itself is attached to the top of that stud, so we got to pull that off just to get to the nut. I'm going to use a 13mm to get down in there with a universal joint and multiple extensions just to give me some reach. You can see I have 13mm down there on a swivel on 2 extensions to give me some some reach here. All right. That's one. Same thing. Get up in here, hopefully. Okay, that's the second stud out. Okay. There's the starter loose. I'm going to turn it towards the front, I guess, a little bit. Let's see which direction we got to go here to get it up. A little bit of a twist. Okay, we're going to take the electrical connections off. It's easier this way than trying to do it down in there. We're going to start with a 13 millimeter is the largest one. Largest. And then I'll take off the last one here, 10 millimeter. All right, yeah, just have the two nuts to take off, and lift your starter straight out. Make sure when you take the old starter out that both of these come with it and aren't down in there. All right, move your wire loom out of the way and drop your starter back in the same way. Once you got it where you can sit the wires back on, we're going to put our nut back on. 10 millimeter back in place. Tighten the 10 millimeter up. And 13 millimeter. Tighten back up. Now that they're tight, rotate it around. So you gotta kind of jockey it in place. Make sure none of the wire looms are in the way. Okay. Takes a little bit of wiggling around to carefully drop it back in, but we're down in place, so probably not gonna be able to get this on camera putting this back in without knocking the camera over, so I'm just gonna do it. It's kind of like putting it in there blind, not much space. You have to tilt it up to get it started. It wants to lean down. Pinch the bolt so that way you won't be able to turn it by hand. So using both hands, one to hold it up, one to tighten until it's the point where I can put a wrench on it. Okay, that's one bolt. Got the other bolt back in place. Tighten it. Get our long extension with our universal joint. And not try to lose my flashlight down in the car. and starter bolt tight. Second bolt tight. Don't forget to put the little hold down for the wiring harness back on the stud. That's all connected back up. So our next step is to put our shift linkage back in place, and that's just a snap. That's there. We gotta get this. Back in. So I got our linkage hooked back up. Trying to knock the camera over. Just lift this a little bit so I can. Keep bumping my camera. Make sure it's all the way back. It's pretty much even on each side, but this clip has to snap over that plastic thing, so that's got to go down. That's it. That's back on there. New starter's back in place. The nuts are on the end for the wires to be connected back up to the starter. The clip's back in place. That's snapped down and secured, so it doesn't wiggle it up and down. Make sure it's snapped in and secured. You don't want it to pop up and end up disconnecting your shifting, your shifter. So you want that functioning. So that's pretty much it. We're done here. We're gonna put the air cleaner back on. Okay. So get your snorkel. You got a tab on the side there. Align it. Get your snorkel hooked back up. Push from both sides and get that thing on there. So you get your snorkel hooked up and you can get your air cleaner in place. Feel around it and make sure that it's all the way back. I got it all the way back and it's tight, so we can put our battery back on. Sounds good, nice quick start. It's got a real quick start to it compared to before. It was like and of course what maybe really changed it wasn't so much that you couldn't really tell it was starting slower, but it was starting a little bit slower. But it started to, you push the button and it would go click, 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 and it wouldn't start. So I'm still going to change the button on it, but the starter's done. I can close the hood out here. And I'll do the button. Under the dash here, we've got these just two, one here, one there, 7mm. Take those both out. Not to bump the camera, it's tight in here. carefully. You can see tab, 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 tab. There's 5 tabs to pull to get to the underside of the dash. Now we've got to remove this metal impact brace. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So up in the dash, you got to try and compress these two. Up in the dash, you got to try and compress these 2 side tabs that hold this down under there. And, oh yeah. So this is where it gets fun. It's possible to get up through here on this side, but I have a feeling it's better to go in through the center console. The old one's out. Of course, I pushed the wire back. I gotta get to the wire. So it's back in. Before we push it all the way in, we'll test it to see if it starts. Here's the key. Keys in the car. We're good. We can just snap that back in. We're good. Back in place. Kind of want to line up all your tabs at the same time. Get them approximately where they belong. Everything's in. Last 2 screws and we're done. I bought the factory button and I didn't notice the difference between the two. The one that was in the car originally has a couple extra things on it, but it should be exactly the same otherwise. The words are in a different spot, but you know, who cares? Anyway, the reason I changed it is I wasn't sure if it was this or the starter, because I've only got, you can see 95,000 miles on this. So, and you think of 95,000, usually starters last 100, 130, you know, so it's a short life for a starter at 95,000. So that's why I said I wasn't sure if the button, because you figure every time that this has been started or even turned on, somebody's pushing the button, so there's a possibility the contacts are going bad inside. And I didn't want to take the chance. I just figured, you know what, $27, $27 for the button, free shipping, and a new starter, and we're done. So getting the key out wasn't the easiest thing. It was tight in the dash. Maybe taking out the center console could have been easier. I don't know. I just went with what I did. In the meantime, I got a couple small cuts from the sharp edges up under the dash. So if you're going to do the actual ignition switch push button, you know, be careful. There's sharp objects in there, and it's really tight. I'm 6'2", and I'm big, and I still was able to get in there to get to both sides of those clips. So there's my video for changing the starter on this and the push button on the dash. I hope it helps you out. Give me a like, share, and subscribe, because you never know what I'm going to do.